Hi guys, Jukka here, and this time we're gonna review a vintage Masters of the Universe minicomic, The Warrior Machine. The cover has the basic setting of good versus evil and Castle Grayskull forced into the background, even if it plays absolutely no part in the story. I have a pet peeve about this actually. Castle Grayskull appears in 27 out of the 49 covers, but in less than half of those appearances does it have any meaning to the story. It feels probable that it was a mandatory condition given to the artist that they would draw good guys fighting bad guys on the cover, and that half the time it would have to have Castle Grayskull in the background. The covers that feature the Evil Horde members almost had a unified look to the background of a barren land around Grayskull, position of the castle, and colors of the sky. Multibot's cover doing something almost remarkable by mirror flipping the castle to the other side. Though I can't help it, I would have preferred the background to be Fright Zone or enemy territory altogether, where the good guys would have been ambushed by this new warrior machine. One thing I do like about this cover is the lettering on the lower left corner, giving us the title. The font looks like it was done professionally with care for the design, unlike some of the title texts in earlier minicomics. And one character that I have trouble seeing in the cover, because of the title, is Grizzlar. Whenever I look at this cover or hear the name of this minicomic, I instantly think of Dragstore, when actually Dragstore's part is quite small in comparison to Extendar's, to whom the story doubles as origin story so that it could be packaged with his figure too. While Dragstore looks awesome and very menacing on the cover, Extendar doesn't really look like himself. Mostly it's because of the face, where the artist has drawn very clear pupils for him, something that I don't associate with him. The turned pose and lack of any gold color on the armor parts makes him look like a different character trying to pretend to be Extendar. Luckily, his only other cover appearance in Snake Attack depicts him with more accurately. I also noticed that on the Masters of the Universe logo, they have made a small mistake so that the top part of the letter M, there is a piece of white area that should have been cut away. This cover is one of two to have this mistake on the logo, the other being Enter Hordak. The story is refreshing because of how early it is in the overall story arc about Hordak and the Evil Horde. This minicomic was in the Wave 5 of minicomics, packaged with figures released in 1986. And at that point Mattel was getting more and more continuity heavy with their stories. Unfortunately, you can't organize the minicomics at this point by their serial numbers, because with the Evil Horde's case, it would result in headaches of weird continuity errors. From what I've gathered, the Warrior Machine fits close to the very end of the Wave 5 minicomics. The story starts at the Fright Zone, where Hordak is tinkering with a new experiment on a Ethereum peasant. Hordak seems hell-bent on getting more power. He actually has already proved that the slime pit he constructed is effective, so I'm curious as to why he didn't stick with that plan. The creatures were obedient to his commands, and when they touch another being, they would sap their energy away from them. Dragstore in his pre-transformed form doesn't look small or weak as Hordak exclaims. Dragstore also doesn't even look scared while laying on the table, which to me indicates that he's not a victim in this scenario. I always loved the idea of Hordak tampering with peasants to create warriors for his troops.
Horde science and magic turned you into the greatest force squad ever to destroy a planet!
It kinda works for introducing a new figure to the toy line, but more than that it just shows what evil mad scientist experiments Hordak will try out. I can just imagine him having a room filled with defect Evil Horde test experiment warriors.
Like that one! Disgusting, isn't it? Yuck! Yuck!
On page 2, there's maybe one quick panel of showing horror mixed with pain on Dragstor's face, which happens during the transformation. With all the talk that Hordak makes about having a warrior with brute strength that requires no pumping of iron, I find it odd that his first exemplary warrior isn't about having strength or power, but speed. Maybe Hordak pulled the wrong levers on his machine? He also makes a point about how Dragstor is part man, part machine. And when we see Dragstor in full, with panel 3, I love the crazed look in his eyes. It's simply fantastic. Oh, and if you notice that Hordak is missing his cape, then having it back on next panel, yeah, get used to that. I've studied the panels on these pages, and I can safely say that whenever Hordak has his back turned to the viewer, his cape is visible. Other times there's no telling if the artist has remembered to draw it. On page 3, Hordak exclaims how his experiment worked better than he could have imagined, and that soon thousands of other Ethereum peasants will be turned into fearsome bionic warriors. But between the panels, something happens, and Hordak suddenly changes his plans from creating an army to attack against He-Man and the heroic warriors into going up in He-Man's face to show his new evil horde member, because he is just too awesome to be kept a secret. Which is a shame, because I actually wanted to see him kidnap a lot of Ethereum peasants and creating all sorts of new characters. At the annual Eternia Games, Extendar is complaining that He-Man isn't there. Having read Masters of the Universe comics that originated from Germany, I feel like I've seen this situation for the umpteenth time of good guys having a tournament. But I discovered that in the minicomics, the heroic warriors held their tournaments and whatnot only 2 times besides this story. The other 2 are Skeletor's Dragon and Eye of the Storm. It's funny that all the heroic warriors take it granted that He-Man is the most powerful and strongest, yet they still want him to participate in these games. Kinda takes the point away the way I see it. Adam tries to explain that maybe He-Man had other business to do when suddenly a character enters the games, and Extendar is impressed by his speed. And as Extendar can't take his eyes off from his new idol, he almost gets run over by Dragstar if not for Adam helping Extendar duck away. Hordak emerges to the scene and wants to show He-Man his latest creation, Dragstar. Extendar, still in fanboy mode, goes on about how fast Dragstar was. Prince Adam says that He-Man isn't around, so Hordak and his crew should leave. Seriously, guys, this is Hordak. Why are you all standing around and not doing something like, I don't know, capturing him? Where are all the royal guards that should be flooding to the scene? Where are all the other heroic warriors? Hordak, of course, ignores Adam and goes to have a chat with Extendar. You like what you see in Dragstar? Minutes ago he was nothing more than a weakling. Oh, and I haven't really tested him for any side effects, so he might as well die from catching the common cold or something. I can do the same for you. I can transform you into a mighty man of muscles, stronger than even He-Man. This scene is simply unbelievable. I mean, I can understand if Hordak had taken Extendar to some alleyway away from all the other people and worked his con artist ways to tempt Extendar for his experiments. But no, this happens in broad daylight in the freaking middle of the entire arena they are in, with Prince Adam yelling next to Extendar not to be a dumbass. This whole scene is so full of stupid. I really can't believe anyone would fall for such a hasty promise that Hordak makes, even if we are to ignore the part about being a crazy mad villain who kidnapped rock people to use in his slime pit and sent all sorts of monsters to attack the good guys. But because the stupidity is strong in this one, Extendar goes over next to Hordak and then they vanish. Prince Adam runs to the side to turn into He-Man, And it's funny how he grabs the power sword with his left hand, but in the next panel it has moved to the right one. After Adam has transformed into He-Man, he races to the portal to Etheria. All the while Hordak is already experimenting on Extendar, meaning that we don't get to see the scene where Extendar might actually stop to think that, Hordak regards his latest addition to the evil horde enough to keep him in a small cage on the floor. What honor might he bestow upon me? Also, this brings to mind another topic, the name Extendar. In the minicomics, we never get any explanation why he is called Extendar before he submits himself to the first crazy person walking his way and gives him abilities that give any purpose to his name. Hordak is also sure to talk out loud how he's only giving a fraction of power to Extendar because Dragster may be too powerful. He-Man intervenes to the scene and Hordak is not surprised or miffed at all for being interrupted. It's fun to see how lightly he takes the situation overall. Makes him seem all that more maniacal and evil. Hordak commands Extendar to attack He-Man and gives him the words by which he will be able to use his new might. Extendar punches He-Man, who stops him easily. Extendar is surprised by this, and Hordak, the same person who just a page ago said how he gave Extendar less power and was in fact not even finished with the experiment, is gobsmacked that He-Man is unharmed. He-Man tries to get through to Extendar, asking if he recognizes him, and I really like the pose on Extendar as he starts to hesitate and his mind begins to free itself from Hordak's evil influence. Hordak is furious about He-Man failing his experiment, and he sends Grizzlor and Leech to attack by pointing in the hero's direction, then exclaiming how he will return the favor by destroying them, and pointing away from the heroes? What? He-Man asks Extendar to help him fight the evil horde, when in fact they probably could just walk away from the scene. Extendar feels weak, but He-Man says that he should use the words Hordak mentioned earlier. By this time Hordak has apparently also climbed up on the rafter, and at this point he feels like shouting, "Ambush them, now!" And I'm surprised that the heroes are still even in the same zip code. And furthermore, that's not even how ambushes work. You actually need a victim to walk into one without expecting it, or it isn't an ambush. And at this point we get to the gimmick of the action feature as Extendar uses the words, and in an awesome drawing he grows in height with his robotic limbs shooting out, and he says he can feel the power coursing through his body.
Yes, I feel it. The power fills me.
At this point, Leech and Grizzlor finally attack, with Grizzlor yelling, "Pound on Extendar!" Extendar easily disposes of the two evil horde members, and also points out that he is twice as strong and almost twice as tall, but clearly he is towering over He-Man at least 2.5 times over, and earlier he was depicted as being around the same height as He-Man before the transformation. Hordak tries to blast Extendar but misses. As Extendar tries to grab Hordak, he jumps down and orders Dragster to run He-Man down. He-Man sees this coming a mile away and swings his sword to trip Dragster. How he does that without simply slicing an arm or a leg off instead from Dragster is beyond me. Extendar notes how Hordak is about to ambush He-Man and that he needs to warn his hero. But luckily Hordak's style of ambush is to grab his target's attention and boast about his might. In the next panel, Extendar somehow has moved all the way across the room and is no longer behind Hordak, but actually on the other side of He-Man, sending a pair of pillars crushing down on Hordak. At this point, Hordak feels it's time to pull the You guys are not playing fair and you're also a bunch of poo-poo heads, before disappearing. On a serious note, this actually is a great hint of things to come when he mentions about creating a whole new force of fighters, which we would see in the Hordes of Hordak minicomic. He-Man destroys the current machine with a mighty Kathwang! And Extendar says how he wanted to be like He-Man, strong and heroic, to which He-Man replies that Extendar should be himself, which is, with his track record, a whiny character who appreciates speed and power and is foolhardy to even go with Hordak to be experimented. You may want to rethink that position, He-Man. Overall, the story is simple and to the point. It even adds a bit of morale to the end, like some of the minicomics at the time were starting to do. Hordak is known for creating characters that would later go work for the Heroic Warriors. Next to Extenda, the other is Snoutspout. This minicomic story differs from the general consensus of Extendar's origin by giving us a character moment where he is shown to be a flawed human being. The need to be more powerful is a basic need, and shortcuts in life are always tempting. Later in the Snake Attack minicomic, Extendar would continue to be focused on being not strong enough to help in times of need, which gives some justification for this particular version of the story. Other times when the origin would be mentioned, such as in trading cards and Mattel's 87 style guide, the scenario is written as Extendar being a direct victim. Probably the best version comes in issue 31 of UK comic that tells the story of two friends Dudon and Thadon that get captured by Hordak and are both being experimented on his sick tests, resulting in Extendar and Dragstar respectively. But Extendar's friendship is what helps him not to sway to Horde's mind control, while Dragstar becomes an obedient figure to the ranks. Interestingly, in the minicomics, as Extendar would go on to be featured in more stories, Dragstar only makes one more appearance in Enter Buzzo Hordak, where he actually is not all that impressed with Hordak's latest creation, Mosquitor. Perhaps there is hope for Dragstar after all.